maybe that's why it works. But yeah, what a fantastic model Alexis Pollux is. Anyway, from there, let's move on to Fafnir Ran. Alright, moving on. G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and in today's episode we're going to be doing the range review for the Imperial Fists. This one is going to be a bit longer because, well, the product line is a little bit longer than what most legions have, and coming off the back of legions like the Iron Warriors, with their all of 0 characters, 2 elite units, minimal upgrade options, this is, kind of a big one. Anyway, let's strap on in and get straight into it, and we're going to start with the helmets. Now, these are the original Mark III helmet upgrades, and they are very boring, I think it's safe to say. I don't know if they were super popular, and frankly, it's kind of hard to spot them in the wild, because all they've really done is take a Mark III helmet, add this bit of a nose bridge, and a crest over the top of the helmet, and that's really it. I do like the one which has the laurel wreath. That's a little bit different. But apart from that, I mean, I even have a set of this somewhere. I can't even pick these helmets out without actually taking time to look at them. They're very boring and uninspired. Then we come to the new helmets, which don't look anything like they should either, because the closest thing these look like is Mark 8 Legion Champion, or the Aegis armor of the Grey Knights in 40k. Either way, they don't look like Heresy. Now, I do like the fact that they've putting like the little Templar symbols into a couple of them, and they sort of look a little bit knightish, we'll say, but I think they missed the mark here as well. I don't really like either of the helmet upgrade sets, especially because we're going to see some better helmets later on. But I do like the Sergeant head, both the bear head and the crested helmet. In fact, I think the crested head is very good comparatively. But, I mean, these are a Mark 6 upgrade head. There's no beak to them. Are they truly a Mark 6 upgrade head? They're not a Mark 3, they're not a Mark 4. I don't know what they're trying to be. It's just like someone designed them and then just said, yep, this is, what, Mark 2? Sure, why not? I don't care, right? That's the sort of mentality that I think occurred here. So, yeah, not a huge fan. Then we get to their Dreadnought, and I really like the Imperial Fist Contemptor Dreadnought. I think it's pretty well designed. I do find it interesting that they, of all the legions, have the Raptor Imperialis iconography on there. Of course, you wouldn't know it, because now all you have is the torso of the Dreadnought. You don't have the legs and arms anymore, and shoulders. But as a whole, the original Dreadnought was really nice. It was simple, understated, and worked really well, I think, because of it. I think it's actually one of the better Dreadnoughts they had in the series, to be honest. And, it's not the only Dreadnought that has this, but I like this little curving bit of trim above the head that contours to the shape of it. I do like that. It's something they've used on a few Dreadnoughts now, and I do think it works. It doesn't feel over the top or out of place or anything like that. You've got obviously the Legion iconography in here, but there's a little bit you can do with it. You're not being forced down any one particular route. It's not you must make this a Templar affiliated knight or a Dreadnought or anything like that. Yeah, it's a good little design. I like it. Then we get to their weapons. So we have the Cataphracti Iliastus Pattern Assault Cannon. Now, it's not really an Imperial Fist weapon. This is an Imperial Fist or a Blood Angel's weapon. It's an assault cannon. I don't really know how much more I can add to that. So, downside here is it is designed for use on Cataphracti armor, but Tartarus Terminators can take it as well, and so can Indomitus Terminators. And yet, especially in the case of Tartarus, they have not made a Tartarus version of this weapon. They only sell the Cataphracti version of the weapon. It's just kind of dumb. Why have the option if you're not going to actually cater for the option? It just seems a bit silly to me. And we actually fall into that trap here as well, where the Storm Shields for the Legion are also Cataphracti specific. And frankly, they work better on Tartarus armored Terminators because it almost makes Tartarus with storm shields better than Cataphracti with storm shields, except in the circumstance of getting shot with heavy weapons. So something like a blast or a template weapon hits a squad of Tartarus Terminators, you won't get to reroll your regular armor save against it, whereas the Cataphracti would. That is the one situation where it's better. Every other time, you're able to move faster, you're able to sweeping advance, you consolidate further. There are a lot of bonuses to not being stuck in Cataphracti armor. And yet the shields are made with Cataphracti in mind. I guess that works quite well because this right here is pretty much your special elite Legion unit. This is the Huskarls upgrade for all intents and purposes. And of course, Huskarls are one of the most busted units in 30k. You're encouraged to take them as Imperial Fists. In fact, you're not only encouraged to, you're kind of designed to make really good use of Huskarls. And, well, all you need is 2 of this upgrade set, add it to 2 5-man Cataphracti squads armed with Power Fists, and all of a sudden, you've got a Soulrite Gauntlet armed, storm shielded, stupid Huskarl squad, which is crazy good over the top. And I do like the design of it. It's interesting, though, that in, say, the Invictus Suzerain of the Ultramarines, we see a whole bunch of unique sculpted shields. Here, we just see the same shield repeated over and over and over. And it's not a bad design choice. I don't hate it. In fact, I quite like the shield. I just wish they did some more variations with it instead of one arm and one shield just copy-pasted 5 times. Maybe remove the fist icon from one of them. You could have a Templar icon. You could have the castle icon. You could have a Raptor Imperialis in there. You could do all sorts of different stuff with heraldry. You could even have blank shields. That would have been a nice touch as well. Maybe something closer to a breaching shield available. Or how the Invictus Suzerain and the Ultramarines, they have like inlaid script in some of them. There's just things that could have been done. It didn't have to be the exact same shield with 0 upgrades. It's just very lazy. And I mean, it works, but it is lazy. And I feel like this is somewhere where if it was done just slightly better, it would have allowed a lot of scope for people to individualize and customize these. Because I know people, including myself, often take breaches not because of how they perform in the game, but because of the fact that you can do something with the breaches' bodies, especially those shields. You can put heraldry on there, you can put interesting patterns on them, striping, checker patterns, whatever it might be. You can do that. You don't have the luxury here, and it's kind of a missed opportunity, I feel. But apart from that, they do work. So, going on from there, the Imperial Fist Templar Brethren. Now, I'm curious with the upcoming changes, how the hell this kit is going to interface with the new power armor, because it's an upgrade kit. Yeah, the new Mark III is not this Mark III. I'm assuming that the arms and the hands and all that will still work, but this was designed with the... Well, I mean, you can use it with the plastic bodies, but it was always designed with the despoilers, the old resin despoilers in mind. That's why it doesn't provide arms in this kit. It's assumed that you're going to have arms already, that you can attach, pistols and all that too. And so it was only providing the bare minimum of what they felt they needed. In this case, it's the combat shield arm. I'm not sure how it's going to work with the new kits, to be honest, because they are basically the Mark VI kit, which has been sort of had a body kit put on it to give it the look of Mark III over the Mark VI, and that means that they're going to be very rigid in their posing. Yeah, you can change out the arms on them, but all the bodies and legs are oriented in a certain direction. The heads will not look correct scale-wise with those bodies and shoulder pads and proportions. I think it's going to be maybe a rework is going to have to happen at some point to part of, if not all of this kit. Now, that in mind, do I like it or loathe it? Well, just like the previous squad, these shields are all the exact same. Completely uniform. I dislike that. They're a nice design on their own, but not 5 of them. Then we get to the torsos. Now, these torsos are beautiful. I love these torsos, and that's the sort of iconography that I wanted to see on the shield here, where you have all of these symbology that the Imperial fists are known for, and yet they've actually spread it out throughout the torsos. They haven't just put the same fist in the middle of every torso. You see some have a large part of a Templar star or cross in the chest, and then a Raptor Imperialis. So you have the Legion fist, and then a smaller cross in the chest. Just the Legion fist, but with some laurel wreaths either side. Or maybe you change the position of the laurel wreaths, or have lightning bolts on there. Like, it's 5 unique chests, and because of that, they look great, and they work really well on squad sergeants. You can spread them throughout the army. I think they look beautiful because of that reason. The swords, the power swords, are a nice power sword design. Not too big, not too short. Bit of a Goldilocks zone. They hit just right for me. I also like the Solarite Gauntlet, the kind of underhand, like they're going to uppercut someone. I like that pose on Power Fist. I wish that was more options like that. And I like the Champion's arm with the sort of engraved sword as well. And even the little backpack banner is pretty neat. So overall, I really, really like the Templar Brethren. And the only qualms I have with the kit are how it interfaces with new power armor, and the fact that the shields are not very unique. Going on from there, we'll get to the next unit, which is the Phalanx Warders. So, Phalanx Warders. Here we have a bit of a weird unit. I always found it strange that they were in Mark IV. They really seem like the sort of unit that should be in Mark III, because they're a breaching unit. And the kite shields seem worse for defensive purposes than the regular breaching shields, which cover more of the body. Now, kite shields are designed for things like cavalry, working on horseback, so it's a bit of an odd design. But that's the real world getting in the way of a good story. The axes are well proportioned. They're better proportioned than the Space Wolf axes. I like that. I also like that they have done these shoulders in such a way that they are built up, they have a lot of iconography, but it's not, in my mind, overblown too much. Maybe if you've got multiple units of 20 of these, it's going to wear pretty thin painting them all. In which case, hey, just use blank shoulder pads. The torsos, again, 5 fantastic torsos. Knocking it out of the park. And they're all unique. Unique and different torsos. Unlike the shields, this is a bugbear we keep coming back to. It's like they got the shield design once. They got it right once, and they sort of said, well, do I have to sculpt another one? It was a lot of work doing the first one. Can I just cut it away there? Can we just, make the 5 of the same one? It'd be a lot easier for me. And that's what they did. So it's a little underwhelming. And then you get to the heads, and the heads are sort of a weird, like a variant breacher meets maybe destroyer helmet. They're fine. They serve the purpose. They do have iconography on them, but it's not that great. So, all in all, it's fine. It's a serviceable kit. There's a lot of good parts to it, but I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to get it, especially because of those shields. I think I would rather use regular breaches and maybe convert the axes, the power axes, in the other hand. I think it would look better, personally. The awesome looking torsos and the neat shoulder pads alone are not enough to get me to buy this kit. Anyway, moving on from there, we get to the first of the characters, so the Decurion Sagittar. There's not a huge amount to say here in that, well, it's another character, and another one which has this sort of pseudo Grey Knight Aegis armor helmet. I know this helmet can be a thing in Heresy, I guess, but it's not a helmet we really saw a lot of. In fact, this helmet didn't really make an appearance as we see it now. Up until the Dawnbreaker cohort, there was a similar helmet on the old Legion champion, the one who's sort of posed on the stairs, who's quite tiny these days, poor guy. But that was really kind of it. And in fact, having the bionic arm and such on this model, it feels more like it should have been an iron hand. Not because other legions can't have bionics, they can. It's just, tank commander, iron hands, bionic arms, all of that just makes a lot more sense to me than Imperial Fist getting one, but hey, that's the way it panned out. And what they've got is, it's okay. And it's only okay because, well, one, it's $63. Like, this is a case where I can't look past the price. Normally in this series, I haven't really spoken about the price at all, but you're getting half a model, with a pintle weapon. I don't think it's worth it for what you get, frankly. And whilst there is some neat stuff in there, like, hey, he's got neat little lightning bolts in the chest and such, it's all hidden by the fact that his arms are held up, that he is holding that weapon. You're not really getting to enjoy that detail. And, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's better than fine, really. I shouldn't be too harsh on it. It's probably like a 7 out of 10 model, realistically. Like, it's above average. But at the same time, woefully lacking. Then we get to the Praetor in power armor. And I think this is a gorgeous model. I really do. I like the pose. I like that they did something dynamic for once. I think that the helmet here works much better, this style of Mark III helmet, than the other Legion sort of specific helmets that they've done. This is gorgeous. The beaten or hammered metal on the greaves, that's very much more like the White Scars would have. So it's an odd design choice to see here. It really feels out of place, like it should have been on them. But whilst it may be out of place, it is not at the detriment of this model. This is a lovely looking model. Has the same sort of sword off the Templar Brethren, looks great. I like the little bits of filigree trim, and I have done something very similar on some of my models. So yeah, that means I really do approve of it. And all in all, well balanced, well proportioned. It's not covered in different symbology on the legs. Okay, it has the pointless sort of tassets on the belt buckle that do nothing, but, well, we can forgive that. And its cloak is actually a bit of a cloak. It comes up over the shoulder. It's not, tucked in under the chest for some reason, like they do on the Blade Guard veterans in 40k and that new champion in 30k. I prefer that look. It's got just enough sculpted on detail and not too much. This is a 9 out of 10. Yeah, this is a solid model. And then we go from there to this one. And, well, frankly, this is another good model, but a clear step down from what they had. Why couldn't they just keep the exact same pose they had and just scale it down by 10% or so? Why did they need to take the model and then repose it and re-release it? What an absurdity. For those who weren't aware, this model had a pose where it was sort of running with the sword held out. Much nicer pose than this. This is a rather boring version of the pose, to be honest. And again, a weird situation we've fallen into with Legion units where, okay, we've got Legion Elite Terminators, and yep, that's fine. And I like this Storm Shield more, I think, than the Huskarls kit. And yet, what did I complain about with the Huskarls and with the Storm Shields and the Ilias's Assault Cannon? It's that they are designed for Cataphracti Terminators. And yet, what Praetor does the Legion get? A Tartarus Armoured Praetor. If you put him in with the Cataphracti, he can't sweeping advance, he can't consolidate as far, and he can't run. And the Cataphracti, they lose the heavy rule, so they can no longer get their re-rolling saves against blast and template weapons. So it's just a lose-lose for everyone involved. Why would you put this model in this armor, in this Legion, at least with the options that are available? It's a weird choice to me stylistically. Apart from that, though, the actual sculpting of the model is lovely. It is very busy, but not to its detriment. There is plenty of yellow panels, whatever you want to call them, left behind. There's lots of room on the cloak if you want to add decal or anything like that. Yep, the 7 isn't required on the cloak. You probably don't need these little zigzaggy lightning bolt things like on that new Praetor they showed the other day. Yeah, they don't do anything with them all, but it's like those are nitpicks. Really what lets this model down is like with the Emperor's Children, how they released the Phoenix Terminators 10 years ago, and then they released the console. The console just can't live up to what came before it. This is the same situation where the previous version of this model, which was too big, was the better posed model, and this had the potential to be, an 8 or a 9. It's a 7, because the other one is an 8 or a 9 at the end of the day. Anyway, then we get the Imperial Fist Legion Command. Because the Imperial Fists were just lacking so many units, they've got a command unit as well. And this one, I think, is actually a really good purchase. Okay, they're getting a bit short, a bit stumpy in comparison to the new plastics, but that's because scale creep is very real, and then, for better or worse, the company is really keen on changing the scale of things, whether it's because people want it or not. Don't care, it's irrelevant to the video. But these are short. Those are 25mm bases they are on, not 32s. That's how small they are. The average Marine will be half a head to a head taller than these guys in the current game. But there are ways around that. You can put hackers underneath the feet, put them on slightly taller base, whatever it might be, just to get the height up a little bit and make it look, more symmetrical. But I really like them. I like them a lot because of the fact that the banner doesn't have a lot of sculpted on detail. In fact, the actual banner surface is designed for decals. Okay, the sculpting is a little raptor headed symbol in the corners of the banner and the fist inside the laurel wreath at the top. Apart from that, you can put any banner on this you like. It's a cool conversion part, therefore, for other legions, because other legions can just shave away the fist in the top icon of this, or remove it entirely, the entire top icon. Any legion could use this model as a basis for a herald. He also has the, Raptor Imperialis symbol on his shin, little icon in the middle of the chest, and lots of blank space on the canvas for you to put any iconography you like, and he's got his little fist on the back of the backpack as well. And I like his mace. This flanged mace is very medieval, and I think it suits them nicely. Then when it comes to the champion himself, like on the Templar Brethren, he has that engraved sword. Looks great. Looks great there. Looks great here. Has a very traditional tabard, which is also nice. I like that they've done this sort of trim on the backpack, like this split trim thing. I actually think that looks pretty neat. It's still clearly recognizable as a Mark IV backpack. Again, it's not like that new Praetor released the other day where it's like, what the hell are you? With the party model. Like, this is Artificer armor done right. And of course, I like the little bit of trim going on around the kneecaps and such, and this interesting filigree pattern that is on the armor. I think this model would lend itself really well to a legion like the Blood Angels or the Emperor's Children because of that. Again, if it wasn't for the scale creep, because it is really noticeable. But apart from that, I really like it. Not a fan of the helmet. Although in this case, it's a little bit more tolerable because they were trying to echo the sort of champion's helmet that we've sort of widely seen. It's more bearable, but I still don't like it. Going on from there, Lord Castellan Evander Garius, the Tyrant of Chthoniya. This is actually a really nice model. Again, another strange choice with the bionics here, because, again, Imperial Fists, why have they always got the bionics? And why is it the left arm each time? Yeah, what a curious question. But the underslung Volkite looks good. The different style of knee pads on this Cataphractii armor, I actually really like that look. As a custom Artificer suit of armor, I think that works. The model is busy, but I don't feel like it's overblown. In fact, I think with minimal work, this could provide the basis for many legions to have a pretty decent Praetor model. Especially something like the Iron Warriors or the Sons of Horus could use this model a bit. Space Wolves, they need someone who's got decently sculpted fur, come on. I really like the model. I'm not sure how his Volkite melted such a perfect hole in that Marine on the base. The Marine looks like he's been dead for a while, though, because he has no charred flesh or anything on his skull. He is clearly just decomposed nicely. So good for him. Has the Solar Up Power Gauntlet as well. You can see the difference between them and Power Fists because they have this sort of socket or plug in the back of them, by the way. That's really the only difference. It's cosmetic. But yeah, I really like this model. And it actually is a circumstance where if you swap out the arm, maybe you can cut it off just at the elbow, get a Storm Shield onto him, and all of a sudden you have a character who could actually join the Huskarls or your Legion Terminators with all their upgrades. So, yay! Another good model. The whole range is actually pretty solid, I think. Going from there, we get to Alexis Pollux, and Alexis Pollux is sort of one of the goats of the OG Heresy. The worst part of the model is the shield. And that's saying a lot, that that's the worst part of the model. And it's only because it's just this thick sculpted on detail, you know. Like, yeah, it's a very thick shield because of all these sculpted on eagle. This was hand sculpted, I believe, not digitally sculpted as well. Many an army has an Alexis Pollux in there as its Praetor, because all you had to do on it was shave away the fist on the chest and the little bit of wreath. Maybe shave away, if you want to use these same shoulder pads, the other fist. That was it. Alexis Pollux is awesome conversion fodder for characters. Has a great pose. He looks, again, this is clearly Mark III armor, but it's also Artificer armor. He's got slightly different knees, you know, slightly different feet, slightly different backpack, but it's all clearly recognizable as Mark III armor. It works, and it's hard to explain why it works here, but doesn't work in other places, but I think it's just because so many of the same characteristics were carried across. Like, he has different knees, but the knees aren't so different you can't tell that it's just an extra plate over the top of the normal kneecaps, for example. He still has all the traditional segments on the back of the armor. The backpack is still all the same shapes and vents. It doesn't have a bunch of extra hoses or armor plates, but it does have these little sort of nacelle covers at each end. Maybe that's why it works. But yeah, what a fantastic model Alexis Pollux is. Anyway, from there, let's move along to Fafnir Ran. Alright, moving on. So Fafnir does have a model, but Games Workshop in their infinite wisdom likes to produce things, and then they just don't sell them anymore, because that's a really healthy strategy for how you want to treat people. Have up-to-date rules for a character in the game, a character who is quite decent in the game, and then don't keep the bloody thing in stock. This goes back to people like Narek Drager. To this day, the only Iron Warriors character released for Horus Heresy in, 13 years? No, it's not been that long. 11 years, going on 12. And he was a limited edition event-only exclusive miniature you could get at Forge World. Oh, that was helpful. Yeah, I had to contact people in the UK. I was salty on that one, don't worry. But, yeah. As a model, he's good. Where he falls down is, he was... And I remember talking about this when he first dropped, and going, what the hell is this armor? This is nothing like Mark III. Well, now we know this is the new Mark III. And in which case, well, he blends in pretty well with that in mind. But where this model falls down, for better or worse, is the fact that he is not his same self that we know from the artwork. We have pictures of him, what he looks like, and he's got these comically, and I mean comically large axes. They're the size of his torso each. When he had these just simple, basic Mark IV power axes, which were commonly available in the Horus Heresy, it was like someone said, that's not grand enough, we need to do something with it, and we ended up with this. And when you look at something like this, and you compare it to Alexis Pollux, and just how different they wear their power armor, you know, it's kind of a stark contrast, because Fafnir, I've not seen making it into every army as a, oh my god, I must convert this into an awesome Praetor. Whereas Alexis, I've seen him in so many armies. So one clearly has a broader appeal than the other. But that could also be because people just can't get their hands on Fafnir Ran. So there's that as well. But overall, it's a fine sculpt. It's just not the character as described, as shown. And he's not the only one that falls into this, to be honest, in the series. Now we're getting to the pointy end. So, Sigismund, the first captain. I do not like the model. I know, it's Mark II, and I love Mark II power armor. I should like the model, but something about the pose, the stumpiness of it's like his leg is shorter than the distance from his belt to the top of his head. It just feels wrongly proportioned. It's not terribly sculpted, but there's something not right in the pose, in the proportions. And I know they're trying to do something more interesting, more dynamic with it, but it ain't working for me. I'm sorry. So the bottom half and the cloak almost looks like it's two different sets of fabric, not the one set of fabric that's like smoothly flowing down. It's tucked into the belt, and then I don't know, it's a new piece of fabric from there. Yeah, the bottom half is a mess on this model. I mean, I like the filigree, I like the Raptor Imperialis, that's fine, but something about the posing just doesn't work for me. Top half, though, fantastic. Love what they did with the top half. The pose with the sword, the sort of dueling pointing at you. The black sword has never looked so good. It really hasn't. I like the very fine filigree in the hilt. Nice little text in there. It's not overblown. It's not some 19-foot long blade. No, it's very tasteful. So is the chains holding onto the arm. They're very, very delicate chain. Looks great because of that. Also, the shoulder pads, they're Mark III, but with like this little round knob. I actually don't mind that look. I think it works for him. This sort of Mark II plus, we'll call it, not Mark III. And the Iron Halo, it's more of a mechanical Iron Halo. But again, that works for me. Same sort of backpack as Alexis Pollock's. So it's like again, that new Praetor that they released the other day. One half of this model is great, the other's a mess. And in this case, it's the inverse. It's the lower half is a mess, the top half looks great. And as for the base, a whole Sicaran battle tank's front quarter that's quite the base. And it does mean that a lot of these characters, they fall into the trap of, if you want to have them on their scenic base, they don't blend into the rest of the army unless you take the rest of the army and you base them the same way. And I'm not always the biggest fan of that. And lastly, Rugal Dawn. I like the model a lot, but I'm going to complain about something first, and that is the unnecessary base. Why, of all the Primarchs, did he come on an oval base? Everyone else was on a 60mm round base, and this bastard comes along on a 100mm oval. I had a whole Primarch collection. I mounted them all on plinths, 60mm plinths, identically posed in my display cabinet. And then this guy comes along and he overhangs the plinth by nearly twice the width of it. For why? Was it just so important to add an extra stair on the right hand side, or to add the bottom half of this Marine's legs, or whatever it might be? No, it wasn't. It was just a weird design choice. And I hate them for doing things like that. When you have a consistent series of models which are all produced the same, why would you go and change the formula on just one of them out of all of them? Just one. It just makes no sense. It's like how Sanguinius had the scenic base sold separately, or how the Lions is on just a generally larger diameter. It's like, of all the changes to make in the series, why that? It's not like he's some oversized Primarch 10 times bigger than the rest who needed the bigger base. In fact, the only Primarch who needs a bigger base is Jagadai Khan for his bike, which we're never going to get at this rate. Anyway, that is the saltiness out of the way. The miniature. I like these more reserved poses. Some people really hate it. They complain about Gilliman or Lorgar. They're not active enough. So there are more poses available than holding weapon up in air, standing with one foot up on rock. Okay? This is nice. This is contemplative. I like that. It suits the steely character of Rogal Dawn a lot better. And we get to just sort of take in the majesty of Dawn. The very similar sort of styling has the Legio Custodes, obviously the gold armor, but also a lot of these round gems, the filigree on the red blade of the sword. That is very Custodes. It kind of tells you that he is the Praetorian of Terror. He has so much iconography that is like them. And I like the fact that he has a bolt gun as his sidearm. It's just what a vanilla paste thing. It suits the character really well. Because he would just have a bolt gun. That is the character that he is. He's boring, bland, and in the best of ways at times. I do not despise Rogel Dawn as a character, but this is one of the few cases where the Legion has a more interesting character in their first captain than they do in their prime arc. I think another one might be Angron versus Khan. I think Khan is a more interesting character than Angron is, and maybe I would also put Sevatar into that. Sevatar is possibly a more interesting character than Comrade Kurz to me. That's going to get me more hate than Reagan on this base, I think. But yeah, Rogel Dawn, he's a nice sculpt. I really, really like what they did with him. I think he has, again, just a really good balance of detail with like the shins, but then they've known to leave well enough alone and leave a lot of blank canvas in there that just lets it breathe, and that's appreciated. Same with the cloak on the back of him. Yes, he has this very rich, fancy cloak on, but they didn't load it up with icons and details. They didn't have to. They didn't feel the need to, and it works really well because of that. Anyway, that takes us to the end of the Imperial Fist model range review. The next one up is going to be the Night Wards, and that is going to be an interesting one right there. Anyway, I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comments section below the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.